YouTube. It is mid-June. We are halfway through the year. It has absolutely flown this year. I feel like I have only just taken down my Christmas tree. I'm sure I've said that before, but I'm kind of thinking maybe I should have just let it up because I'll be putting it back up again soon. As we are halfway through the year, I've seen a few other booktubers do this. I thought I would do my favourites so far. It's been lovely pulling these off the shelves and just having the memories of some of the fantastic reads that I've read this year. And some of them are genres that I've never really read before. And that would be, to start off with, the graphic novel. These are completely new to me this year. I'd never read any graphic novels before. It's becoming the year of the graphic novel. I'm really enjoying finding out what I like, what I hate, what is out there, the diversity, the variety. For me, I kind of thought it probably was all sort of like Marvel Comics kind of Superman kind of thing, but obviously I've found out that that's not the case. So I've got three graphic, I don't know if they're all, you could class them all as novels, but graphic pieces of work that are my favourites this year. And the first one is The Trouble with Women by Jackie Fleming. I absolutely adored this. It is so funny, and it's basically how women just don't appear in history. It's a very tongue-in-cheek look at it, and I think it's all the more powerful for that. It's got really like quirky little drawings in it. That's a picture of a lady, Victorian era, they wore the big skirts, and apparently the reason for that was, I think you might be able to see it, is so she can store all sorts of things under those skirts, and they tend to be things like, I don't know if you can see, there are forceps there for delivering babies, and there's like pots and pans and screwdrivers and brushes and all sorts of things, obviously her equipment for doing housework. But it's snippets from history about some of the great thinkers of the days, attitudes towards women and things that they said about women, about things like the brains are so full of sewing and encouraging and applauding men that they really don't have room for anything else in there. And a female naturally has the propensity to be a supporter and a clapper of a man. So it's really funny. I absolutely loved it. Next graphic novel I've got is Descender Volume 1. This is by Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen, and this is a sci-fi, and I absolutely adored this. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it, but it's sort of like there's been almost like an apocalyptic event where the machines and the robots have wiped out humanity, and it's sort of like there's this little robot that's left who you will love. I think he's called Tim 21, and apparently within him he's got the key to what happened and how we overcome it. And I've just bought Volume 2. The artwork is just fabulous in it. The story is really sophisticated and really enjoyable. The characters, I like them. I don't want to kill them. Sometimes in some of the graphic novels I've wanted to kill the characters myself. I really like them. I'm very intrigued to find out what happens next, and yeah, this so far in this sort of serialised graphic novel is my favourite one of the year so far. Another graphic novel is The Arrival by Sean Tan. There is actually no words in this at all. It is told through pictures only, and it is absolutely stunning inside. I don't know if you can just see the drawings there. It's all this beautiful sort of sepia palette, and it tells the story of immigration and what it's like to come from what you know to a new land, and you don't speak the language and you don't know how things work and you don't know how to get a job or food, and it's all about overcoming those obstacles and some of the prejudices that you face from people that you have moved in amongst. And I found it really emotive, this book. I really sort of felt that if it had had words it wouldn't have been as powerful as it was because the drawings, the artwork are so beautiful and stunning that they say probably a lot more than any words could ever say. And there is some sort of like little quirky kind of magical realism bits in it, but it is just fabulous. I found it really made me feel for the characters. It was one of those that I was thinking about after I'd read it. It was in my mind. and it's one I will go back to. It's fabulous. That's it for my graphic novels. On to classics, and the best classic that I read this year was a reread, and that is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. It's the first time I'd reread it since 1999, and I'd always since regarded it as my favourite book of all time. And there's always a risk if you go back to rereading a book, particularly when you've grown up and matured quite a lot since you first read it, that you may not see in it what you saw the first time, and it may not have the same power over you as it did, but actually this was better the second time round. There was so much more in it that I'd forgotten about, and I loved it, so it didn't let me down. I really don't think I need to go into the plot of Jane Eyre. In fact, I will be doing a video shortly of a read-along, a buddy read that Eleanor from Eleanor Reads Books and I did, where we started off with Jane Eyre and then we read books that were inspired by Jane Eyre, and so I'll be doing a wrap-up of that soon. One of those books that was within the sort of reading project we did was Thornfield Hall by Jane Stubbs, and this is Jane Eyre seen through the eyes of Mrs. Fairfax, the housekeeper. I'll go into more detail about it when I do my wrap-up, but I absolutely loved this one. It was really well done. It was incredibly plausible, and I think it actually enhanced what I got from Jane Eyre because of this, and it was very sensitive. It didn't take too many liberties, and it was a really, really good read, and I thoroughly recommend that one. The next one is a contemporary fiction, and it's actually a series that I read, and this is the 9th book in the 44 Scotland Street series by Alexander McCall Smith, and this is Bertie's Guide to Life and Mothers, and this is a series set in a street in Edinburgh called 44 Scotland Street, and it's all about the characters that live in a converted mansion that's into flats and some of the friends and contacts that they've got. And it's a really fantastic commentary on modern life and the middle classes. They're like old friends, the characters now, because it's book 9. I can't wait to get back to them and see where we're up to next. And in particular, the main character, I don't know if you can see him in the tree there, little Bertie. Little Bertie has never been allowed to grow up. So all through 9 books, he's been 6, and he really, really wants to be 7. And his mother is very overbearing. She's got what's called the Bertie Project, where she makes him go to see therapists, and he has to learn Italian and saxophone, and basically all Bertie wants to do is go to Scouts, get mucky, and do the normal things that young boys do. And it's absolutely delightful, and it is sort of like a bit of a social commentary, but it's a very warm way of doing it, and the characters you will just fall in love with, and so I thoroughly recommend this series. And the first one is obviously 44 Scotland Street if you've never read them before. The next one is another contemporary fiction book, and this was shortlisted for the Costa First Novel Award in 2014, and that is A Song for Izzy Bradley by Caris Bray. I wasn't sure what to expect from this book, and I'd had it on my shelves for quite a while, and I'd heard it was about bereavement, and it kind of put me off a little bit because I was thinking, well, this is going to be something that's going to rip my heart out, and I don't think I can cope with it. But I went into it with Eleanor because it was one of my first buddy reads that I ever did, and it absolutely blew me away. There's so much more in it than bereavement. There's elements of living life as part of the Mormon church, which I didn't know much about at all, and was a real eye-opener, especially when you see it through how it is lived and how it affects people and how their everyday lives are influenced by it. But also it has the effect of how grief can affect a family, but each one experiences it in different ways, and each person's experience of it then affects another member of the family, and it was so beautifully done, and the characters were so real, and the writing was beautiful, and I was so invested in everyone in this family that I thoroughly recommend it. And yeah, it was a fantastic 5-star read. The next one is historical fiction, and this was the winner of the Costa Novel Award. I'm not sure what year it was, and this is Brooklyn by Colm Tobin. I actually listened to this on audiobook, and it was read by Niamh Cusack, and it was absolutely fantastic. The way that she read it, obviously she's an Irish actress, she gave so much more to the text, and it's a story of a young girl who grew up in Ireland in the 50s, and obviously there was nothing for girls to progress and to make more of their life. You know, there was really no choices, no options, and so it's a time of great immigration to America, in particular Brooklyn, and it's how she fares when she gets there, how her life changes. It's all about homesickness, it's about settling down into a new way of life, and it's absolutely brilliant. The film of it, which I watched after I read the book, is a really well done film, and this actually has got the movie cover, which I usually hate on a book, but I quite like this one. And yeah, the film I do recommend as well, because they were really faithful to the book and it was incredibly well done. The only short story collection that I've got in my favourites so far this year is, again, Carrie Spray, Sweet Home. This woman is so wonderful. I love everything she does. I love these stories. They are stories of family life. There's some of them that have got a little bit of magical realism, and in fact probably my favourite one is the lady who's going around the supermarket and there are babies. There's an aisle with babies and you can go and get one off the shelves and buy a baby and adopt it if you want to, and they're really well done, really powerful and very emotive. Again, fantastic characterisation. She gets it all down into a short story, all those feelings and thoughts and emotions that you experience in such a succinct way and beautifully written. So yes, this is a great short story collection and I thoroughly recommend that one. Carrie Spray is fab. The next favourite I have is Barbara Pym, and this is Some Tame Gazelle by Barbara Pym, and this is, I think, the first one in her series of books. I don't think they all follow on from each other, but they're all sort of a similar ilk, and these are all tales of English village life in, I'm not sure if it's the 30s, I don't know if it's in between the war, but it's around that era, early 20th century. And if you just look at the cover, it's absolutely beautiful. And this one is the tale of two sisters, and I can't remember the name. It's the Mrs. Bede, Harriet and Belinda. And they're obviously of independent means, so they've got plenty of time on their hand. And so village life and village gossip and the vicarage and events at the vicarage are all encompassing to them, and in particular one of the sisters does like to take the young curate under her wing, and it's just really funny but really sharp and really witty, and it's got, you know, quite a nice element of an underlying bit of bitchiness that I'm sure must go on in real life, and I thoroughly recommend it. I love her writing. There's quite a few more of these types of books that Barbara Pym has written, which I definitely will be reading soon, and so I thoroughly recommend Barbara Pym. She was another author I've discovered so far this year, and she's great. And then if we're on to children's books and young adult books, I'll just quickly show you these. I am reading Harry Potter for the first time, and so far I've read the first 3, so I've got these beautiful editions, and the actual covers of them feel like, you know, that sort of waxy kind of furry kind of, I don't know, that lovely texture. And so all of these editions are great. So I've read The Philosopher's Stone, The Chamber of Secrets and The Prisoner of Azkaban, and all 3 are just fantastic, and I can't wait to dive back into that world because it's just a lovely place to disappear into and escape to, and I'm sure all of you know the plot. Another one is a children's book that I read, and this is Kenzo Kingdom by Michael Morpurgo, and this is a book that my daughter bought me for Christmas because she'd read it at school and loved it and thought I would like it. And it's quite a short book, and the text is quite big and spaced out, but the amount he packs into this book is fantastic. If you've read The Life of Pi, it's got a similar vein to that one. It's where there's a young boy and he lives in normal suburban life, but there's redundancy that hits his family and they just end up saying, sod it, we'll just go in a boat and we'll sail around the world and we'll have that kind of experience. And he gets swept overboard and washes up on an island, and he thinks it's uninhabited until this old Japanese man in exile, Kenzuki, helps him survive, and they have no common language, but over time they learn to communicate with each other, love each other, support each other, and it's the story that happens there, and it's just lovely, it's wonderful, and it's so well done in such a short book. This is in joint first position for my favourite book of the year so far, and this is The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge. If you haven't read this, you really should read it. And this was the Costa Book of the Year winner for 2015, and this is a children's book, so that tells you how really good it is. The girl in it is Faith. I can't think of her surname, and she's become my new girl crush. She's absolutely full of guts and courage, and she's brainy and she's witty and she doesn't take any crap. And her father is a naturalist, and he's one of the, you know, the Victorian sort of potterers. He's also a reverend, and he discovers a fossil that nobody's ever seen before, and it turns out that he faked it, and so he's kind of got to make a swift exit. So he's invited to an island to be the sort of expert there, and as soon as he arrives they kind of find out about his fakery, and he turns up dead. And that's not giving any spoilers, but people think he's committed suicide, but Faith is convinced he's not. And so it's about her attempts to prove that her father was killed rather than took his own life. And the lie tree is a specimen that her father had that you tell lies to, and it reveals the truth to you. And it's just fabulous. It's a page turner, but again, fantastic characters, fantastic insight into life at that time, and like I say, Faith is just brilliant. You will love her. So yeah, so that's joint first with The Martian by Andy Weir. I loved it. I just loved it so much. And he's, you probably know the story, it's been around a lot, this book. He's an astronaut, well he's a botanist astronaut, and he gets stranded on Mars. People think he's dead, and then they realise he's alive, and it's how he survives. And the astronaut is called Mark Watney, and I am completely in love with him. He is my biggest literary crush at the moment, and you will never get how much love a man can have for his potatoes. And he's clever, and he's witty, and he's resourceful, and it's nail-biting right through to the end because you're wanting him to be rescued, and it's all his journal logs, and I absolutely loved it. I have again watched the film of this, and it's pretty good adaptation. There's so much more in the book, but then there always is, but it's a pretty good adaptation. It does really get the essence of the book in the film, so absolutely fantastic. So far they are my favourites of the year. Top two, The Lie Tree and The Martian. You will not go wrong if you read either of these if you haven't read them already. So here's to the next 6 months. Hopefully they'll be as good as the first 6 months. There have been some turkeys in this period of time, and I may do a video on those. That might be good to say, you know, to show the losers of 2016 so far, my biggest hates so far. So yeah, maybe I'll do that one next. So I'd like to say, let me know what you've enjoyed so far this year, and any comments down below, and we'll chat. Anything you've got to recommend. Keep reading, and I'll see you all soon.